Hello everyone, this is TGK Pikachu. It has been quite a while, but starting now, I will be consistently uploading once or twice a week. I also got a sponsorship by a modular synthesis company that goes by the name Synthertech. So that's pretty cool. Lots of cool stuff happening recently. They sponsored me with this MST rack, and I decided to make a video teaching the basics of modular with it. This video is going to be for complete beginners, and everything will be dumbed down as much as humanly possible. The goal is to make this video concise and engaging, so if this video is that for you, show your love by zapping that like button and subscribing. Anyway, this video won't be very concise if I keep rambling along, so let's get started. Now, you've probably got a good look at this Euro rack I've got here, and it probably looks pretty confusing. Don't worry, because all of this will be explained. First, I should tell you about how this thing actually works, how it produces sound to be more specific. Synthesizers use voltage. Everything in modular synthesis is controlled by voltage. Whether something like frequency, which is the speed of the waveform, or amplitude, which is how loud the waveform is, increases, then voltage increases with that. Whenever the amplitude or frequency decreases, voltage decreases, and so on and so forth. Now, understanding this isn't all that important to understanding a Euro rack, but it gives you a basis for what exactly it's doing. It's sending electrical signals. Now let's get into the important stuff. In modular, you have audio signals, control voltages, gates, and clocks. Those are the four main things in modular. Audio signals are the stuff you hear, so that's pretty simple to understand. I'm gonna get a saw wave, which is just a type of sounds from this oscillator right here. We're gonna take it and we're gonna plug it into this input all the way over to the stereo out, which is just outputting my sound. It just outputs a sound. It's important to note that audio signals can be used as control voltages, but let me explain CV first. Control voltages don't output any sounds, but they output voltage that can affect other parameters. So let's get back our saw wave that we had just a second ago. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this ADSR, that stands for Attack, Decay, Sustain, Release, and it's a module that outputs control voltage. I'm gonna get a patch cable here, and I'm gonna take this out. This is the control voltage out. We're gonna plug it in here, and we're gonna plug it into this little input. This stands for 1 volt per octave, and essentially what that means is every octave is a volt. So if you're up 5 octaves, then you would be up 5 volts. Let's plug it in here. This 1 volt per octave. And now I'm going to plug back in our saw wave. So that was just a little example of what this thing can do. As you can hear, it's sending a varying voltage to the 1 volt per octave, which is changing the pitch of the sound over time. Now let's discuss gates and clocks. Gates and clocks are almost the same. A gate is essentially a square wave that acts like an on and off switch, differing from control voltage. If it receives a signal, instead of accurately outputting the level of voltage received, it instead just does whatever it's doing 100%. The best way to visualize this is this. If you have a knob, and you could set that knob to a specific value, that's more like control voltage. If you have a switch that says on off and you can only choose one or the other, that's a gate. So I think the best way to visualize a gate is to hook up a MIDI controller. Here's my little MIDI controller. We're gonna set this to the side for now. And we need to do some setup before we can start playing around with the sound with the MIDI controller, so let's get to it. This is the module doing all of the stuff that configures the keyboard. I'll do a tutorial how to set this up in the future, but we're going to take our gate out right here, and we're going to send a gate to this Attack, Decay, Sustain, Release module that we were using earlier, and as you can see, the lights stopped, which means it's no longer like working. It's not self-cycling like how it used to be. Now, if we take our MIDI controller and we hit some notes, as you can see, the lights turn on whenever I hit the note. That might not mean much to you right now, but let's keep going. So we're gonna get back our saw wave that we had a second ago, but instead of plugging it straight into this stereo out, we're gonna plug it into this VCA, which the VCA has a control voltage input that essentially modulates the volume of the sound. So throw it through the outputs. So you hear the saw wave right now, but let's take this output of the ADSR, throw it in the CV, and now if we plug this in, you won't hear anything. Now our sound is set up so we can play it on the keyboard. Let me quickly explain what's going on here. We just have a saw wave going into this VCA, which is going to modulate the sound, which you'll see how in a second. We plug something into the output and put it in the in. So just output, input, output, input. That's usually how things go in modular. Now we have the gate out from this MIDI to CV, which is controlling all of the stuff with the MIDI controller, into the gate input of this ADSR. So now this ADSR is controlled by the MIDI controller, and we take the ADSR output, control voltage output, and put it in the control voltage input in the dual VCA. Hopefully that all makes sense. Rewatch it a couple times if that helps you. Now, if we play, as you can see, it's triggering the ADSR module, and when this thing is triggered, it sends its control voltage output to the dual VCA, making this sort of sweep sound that we're hearing. We can also adjust this. Now you can see it's not changing pitch depending on what note I hit. So let's fix that, just as a little extra bonus thing. If you don't want to watch this part of the video, then just skip to this timestamp. I guess actually, no, that's wrong. What am I talking about? What am I doing? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the CV out. There's a CV out from the MIDI to CV, and we're going to plug that into the 1 volt per octave. So now, whenever I hit one of these notes, it'll send a voltage to the 1 volt per octave and play the correct pitch. Now it's not completely right because I have to fine tune the oscillator. Up. A little more.
Congratulations! Congratulations! Congratulations!
There we go. Now it's mostly in tune, so now I can just play it like a keyboard. You cannot play chords because modular is usually monophonic. That means it can only play one sound at a time. Anyway, enough about gates. Let's just talk about clocks now. Clocks are almost exactly the same, except they self-cycle. What that means is it's a gate that simply holds for a certain amount of time and then recycles itself automatically. There are usually ways to set the speed of a clock. If the clock receives a signal to start self-cycling, it will turn on and off until there isn't a signal anymore. When there isn't a signal, it simply stays off just like a gate would. It would be like if you had an annoying little brother flickering the lights in your room on and off until you get annoyed enough that you told him to stop. I'm sorry. You better be. So let's give an example. We're going to take this gate out and put it into the sequencer. This is a gate output as well. And we're also going to do the same thing for the CV. This is a CV output. And this thing has a clock. This is the clock in. If you plug something in here, you can set the speed of a clock. This sequencer already has some built-in clocks. They work just fine, and so I just use them most of the time. But this is the speed of the clock. This is how fast the gate will go. So I can hit this run button right here. So you heard that the saw wave was being played multiple times, but at different pitches. That's essentially how this clock works. It plays the first step of the sequencer, which is just a little note right here. It's playing a C, but I gotta tune it correctly. That's close enough. It plays this, sends a gate output, and then it sends another gate output to this ADSR again. As you can hear, it re-triggers. Every step, and it sends different control voltage because I have something different set on the piano every single time. So that's about it. If you understand those 4 concepts, then you understand nearly everything important about modular. Here's a quick summary. Audio signals and sound. Control voltage sends electrical signals that can affect other parameters. Gates are square waves that can act as on-off switches, and clocks are the gates that self-cycle. Now here's the other part of modular and the part that makes it cool. It's workflow. The workflow in modular is unique to synthesizers because synthesizers usually have set routing sequences. What I mean by this is they usually all have a keyboard that plays a sound, and then you have the oscillators that go into the effects, and then the LFOs modulate the knobs, and the workflow is just a lot more set in stone. With modular, it takes all of the inputs and outputs and just lays them there. You can plug whatever you want into anything. This gives you full freedom to do literally whatever. Modules do have their limits, but you can continue to build on your ear racks for years, unlocking new capabilities and sonic possibilities. It's really just a lot of fun. Now, synths have a ton of capabilities, don't get me wrong, but modular capabilities are basically endless. Let me show you what I mean. So I can just synthesize a sound really quick. Let me just pull out all of this. Start here. Let's just do some random stuff. So we're gonna plug this square wave. And we're gonna have this square wave go into this input to do some volume automation, but I think we're gonna have output go into the delay input, and then the output can go into the stereo out. But then we could take our envelope right here and just have it like self-cycle and do stuff like that. And then we'll take the CV out and plug it into this mult, which essentially, which essentially multiplies the amount of outputs that this has. So it goes from 1 to 4. So now we could take one of these 4 outputs, plug it into this CV. We can take another one of those outputs, plug it into the rate CV right here. We can put it through the output, and you're probably saying like, this is all doable within a synth already. So why is this so cool? Yeah, that's really weird. See, like, I don't even know what I did there, but it sounds cool. That's not all we could do. Remember when I said audio signals can act as control voltages? It's important to note that audio signals can be used as control voltages.
I'm going to remind you in advance that I'm very sorry and I apologize for the inconvenience of me not keeping up.
Fudge. Yes. Well, we could use the sound we just made, take its output, and do some FM right here, which FM is frequency modulation. I won't really get into that right now. But this is an input, and we're using the sound we just made as control voltage. I plugged this into the wrong thing. What the heck is wrong with me? Now we can get like a triangle wave, and we'll throw it into this distortion. Plug the output into over here, and now we have... See, I don't like, that was super cool. That was a super cool sound. And I could take stuff from the same oscillator that's getting all of these crazy effects and send another sound, because I have 6 outputs right here. Could plug a square wave into the pulse width modulation, take a square wave, plug it into here, but not quite yet, because I could take some noise and like put it in here. We can multiply this output. I'm just like nerding out like crazy right now.
Obviously.
I don't know. I don't even know what this is gonna sound like. What in the heck? You get my point. You could just have so much fun just endlessly like messing around and just like getting nitty gritty using your hands, and just like, you look really smart, but it's actually really easy. So now in the end, hopefully you have a basic understanding of how those 4 concepts in modular work, and how modular is also so innovative and fun. It's still pretty easy to learn. The hard part is probably learning the modules. If you don't have any sort of experience with oscillators, envelopes, and other things, it can be pretty confusing. I'll be doing a video on each of these modules that will be much more in depth. If you want to see that, be sure to subscribe. I mean, come on, people. It's not that hard. You just press your mouse once. I can confirm that subscribing is easier than this, and I will help you learn this if you do the easy thing and just hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching this video, and have an electrifying day.